On a busy downtown street in Atlanta stands a true success story in Georgia corrections. In the early 70s, the state determined that a better alternative was needed than releasing an inmate with $25 and a bus ticket once his or her sentence was served. The state developed transitional centers to ease inmates back into Georgia communities with job skills, treatment options, and the financial backing needed to start a new law-abiding life. Only carefully screened inmates close to the end of their sentence are chosen to enter the work release programs. And once selected, the inmate is required to pass a 30-day orientation where they still wear their institutional tan jumpsuits while attending a variety of life skill classes. Due to the limited amount of space, there's a waiting list to get into one of the centers. Whether at a center in Atlanta, Macon, Savannah, or Albany, security and control are maintained at all times. If it's determined that an inmate is not ready for work release, or for not following the rules at the center, he or she is sent back to prison to serve the rest of their sentence. If they pass the 30-day orientation, then they are no longer an inmate, but a center resident. The centers are meticulously maintained and self-supporting. They're clean and they're maintained by the residents. Meals are prepared daily, classes are held, and counseling is offered. Even a barber shop is on site. In Georgia Transitional Centers, the same rules and requirements for acceptance into the program apply to women as well. In this Atlanta female center, group therapy and one-on-one counseling deal with a multitude of issues, from drug abuse, job readiness, to parenting skills. Once a job is found and the residents leave the center for work, the exact time and route to and from work are known by the staff, and they're strictly enforced. At the Macon Transitional Center in Middle Georgia, just as in all of Georgia's correctional facilities, military-style discipline is observed. But it's the relationship the center has with its participating employers that really makes the program work.
Well, first of all, if you didn't get good quality support from employers, you wouldn't have a work release program. That's really the backbone of the program itself. We have a very good relationship with all of our employers. Right now, we have about 50 some odd individual employers that hire residents from the center. I've turned away probably 100 jobs in the past 2 or 3 weeks because we don't have that many residents.
In order to cover most of the costs of the program, the state requires that 30% of a resident's earnings go to the center, which is then processed back into Georgia's general treasury. State taxes as well as child support or fines are also taken out, none of which would be the case if the offender were still incarcerated. The balance of the money is then kept by the resident for incidentals, and the rest goes into a savings account for use after release. The transitional centers afford the residents the opportunity to re-enter society as productive citizens.
People that make it to this program are not a risk at all. They've stayed out of trouble, they did what they were supposed to, and they've proven that they want to go back into society and be productive.
The Stokes Shaheen Produce Company in Macon has hired residents for over 10 years after finding that getting employees that were alcohol and drug-free to work the 3 a.m. shift was especially challenging for them.
Not like most people would expect, you know. You're bringing in a guy out of prison. Well, it's not really that way. It's, you know, a lot of these guys, they've made mistakes, but, you know, they turn out pretty well.
So well, in fact, that many of his current employees are former transitional center residents. The bottom line is that most inmates will be released from prison one day, either through the front gate with that $25 and a bus ticket, or via a proven transitional program that benefits both the resident, the employer, and ultimately all of Georgia's communities.
As an employer, we've only had a win-win situation with the residents coming from the Transition Center. You get a committed workforce that's willing and able to come to work every single day.
The success of the program is one of the most rewarding aspects for Superintendent Arrington at Atlanta Transitional. He knows that he is reintegrating an ex-inmate back into the community with a stable job, a steady income, and a substantially reduced chance of reoffending.
We got a check for you today for $2,582.27.
After nearly a year in the program, this now ex-resident has a full-time job with one of Atlanta's biggest department stores. He has an apartment ready to move into, a savings account, and he expects another raise in a few weeks. He's leaving as a taxpayer, not a tax burden, and his transition back into a safer, more secure community has already begun.